It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, your knowledge-based property podcast. And we're doing this 7 days a week from all corners of the Australian housing market, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. The working week, we are rattling through it. Thursday, November the 14th. And you might have caught over the last couple of weeks us talking about strata fees and asking how much do you feel like you're being ripped off. One of Australia's top strata management firms, Strata, has come under fire for brokerage fees. Apartment owners for the first time could see that they were being charged up to 6 times the industry standard. In some cases, fees reached 148% on the base insurance premium, which is far exceeding the typical 20 to 25% rate. And then, of course, Four Corners did a piece on it, which you might have seen a few weeks ago as well.
It's really hard as a teacher and a single mum to be able to afford a property, so kind of having an apartment or a unit was a way for us to get into the housing market.
The companies hired to manage these buildings are cashing in to the tune of $7 billion a year.
It's the hidden costs. It's the random mismanagement costs that you know nothing about.
It's almost as if the whole business model has been designed to, frankly, screw Australian apartment owners.
And I guess that's the question for you. Do you feel like you're being screwed over? Well, let's welcome and catch up once again with Nick Buick, the founder and CEO of the Onsite Manager this morning. And good morning to you, Nick. Welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast. I guess the first question is talking about some of this potential corruption in Strata as covered by Four Corners. Can it be avoided?
Yeah, good morning, Craig. Thanks for having us. It's a pretty poignant question at the moment. I'm speaking from a perspective of someone who works in management rights in Queensland. We've had our eye on this problem for quite a while up here, and it was quite vindicating to see that Four Corners article come out. I think it can be avoided, and I think the best way to avoid corruption in strata is through separation of powers. That's something that we have in our legislation in Queensland, and it's something that doesn't exist down south, which I think has directly led to the problems that we're seeing.
Yeah, there seems to be this real hot point at the moment where there's this illumination going on with some of these fees. You're working in a different state. I mean, how much have you sort of seen that firsthand, perhaps in other states?
Yeah, we've been pretty involved because the last 6 years, those very same strata groups down south that have now been caught red-handed engaging in this sort of conduct have been lobbying the Queensland government very heavily, and they are very well financed. They have a lot of money behind them because of some of the issues that we've just seen. And they've been lobbying the state government very hard to introduce the same laws in Queensland that we see down south, obviously, so they can get involved in strata in Queensland. Alex Cook, who normally does the show with me, he's actually worked on the government steering committee that advised on those laws and their feasibility. And luckily, it seems like those laws aren't going to go ahead. So we're going to get to keep the laws that we have in Queensland, which have avoided some of this corruption that we're seeing.
Well, let's sort of drill down on that, because I think the people listening would be very interested to hear just the differences in strata legislation between Queensland and the southern states. So perhaps step over that for us this morning.
Yeah, gladly. There's two main differences with Queensland. The first one relates to the term of caretaking in a building. So the manager's term in an accommodation building, that can be up to 25 years, and in a residential building, it can be up to 10 years, which is quite different to down south, where the terms of those contracts is only a couple of years. In Victoria, it's only 3 years. So that ensures that the managers in Queensland have skin in the game. They buy into buildings for the long term. And typically they're lot owners in those buildings as well. That tends to, just by virtue of their relationship with the building over such a long period, tends to keep them a little bit more honest, is my personal opinion of how things work. And the second thing to consider is that in Queensland, we have separation of powers. So if you're a caretaker, if you're a building manager in Queensland, you cannot be a strata manager. In fact, you can't even sit on the committee for that body corporate. So those powers are separated, whereas in New South Wales and Victoria, you can be the strata manager, you can be the body corporate manager, you can sit on the committee, you can be the letting manager, you can wear all of those hats. You can end up in a situation where you're in a committee voting to extend your own contract. So down south, yes, the contract terms may be shorter, but when the people voting on those contract renewals are the same people that benefit from them, it's a huge conflict of interest.
So in terms of other states trying to change the legislation in Queensland, maybe to suit their own ends, this whole blowtorch that the Four Corners did, I mean, that's kind of like a nail in the coffin in terms of them trying to get into Queensland, I would think.
Yes, the timing was very fortuitous because, like I said, our industry, the management rights industry, has been fighting this legislation for years now. Alex Cook, like he said, he worked on it, and a lot of people that I know, lawyers and such, have given up vast amounts of their time for free to advise the government to just try and scale this stuff back. And it, by the time this news broke, we'd already the work had been done to protect the industry, but it was very vindicating to see that Four Corners expose come out when it did.
Yeah, I think that, it's been a bit of a revelation for people collectively by that piece, just in terms of just how many people have been affected. And we'll continue the conversation in just a moment with Nick when we come back, and we'll find out who is behind the push to change the strata and management rights legislation. We'll talk about that after this.
Every week we present so much real estate. Powerful, up-to-date news every morning from 6 a.m. Know your property with us on the Real Estate Podcast.
And right now it is time for another 30-second property tip, and we are taking you to David there in Adelaide. Good morning, David. What have you got for us this morning?
Good morning, Craig. Well, I think if you're looking to live in a really good area, good location, close to the city in Adelaide, if you consider a strata-titled unit or a community-titled property, it may not be exactly what you were thinking about, but it offers a great lifestyle and could be a lot more affordable. And if you're getting frustrated finding that right family home, perhaps expand your horizons a bit and look at different property categories.
Well, that is just so incredibly on point in terms of what we're talking about with strata, but make sure that you do the due diligence when it comes to strata, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. Thank you, David.
From interest rates rising, a shifting landscape, rentals running hot, clearance rates, a tight rental market, we cover it all every morning from 6 a.m. on the Real Estate Breakfast.
And it's a Real Estate Thursday. We are talking to Nick once again, strata management and some of these fees being charged. It's a hot topic at the moment. And Nick, you kind of explained who is behind the push to change the strata and management rights legislation. Perhaps just sort of dive down that tunnel a little bit more for people this morning.
Yeah, sure. It was a collection of strata management companies that had their concentration in the southern states. There was a few that they're heavily financed, and their shareholders often are law firms that also are obviously very well financed. And then there's a few journalists who had relationships with some of the self-appointed unit owners associations and body groups as well that all sort of came together, had a fairly cozy relationship among each other, and they were pushing very hard. They even went as far as to refer to it, I believe it was legalised corruption, terminology that they were using to refer to Queensland's management rights laws. So again, very vindicating to see that Four Corners article come out and see who really were the legalised corruption proponents of or beneficiaries of the arrangement.
And Nick, recently we spoke to Karen Stiles, the policy director from the Owners Corporation Network in Sydney, and she was talking about this example where somebody was literally going out of their mind. They bought into a building where there was a gym on the ground floor, and the amount of noise, was exactly that. It was harrowing for them. So what would you advise in that sort of a scenario?
Well, firstly, anytime any strata property or lot is for sale and you look at it, one of the first things that has to be provided to you is a disclosure statement. And in that, it contains all of the body corporate minutes from recent body corporate meetings. So often that will uncover any kind of issues that may be happening in the building between the various lot owners. And so that's always a great thing to look over to identify any potential problems that may arise. And the other thing to keep in mind is that every building has a set of bylaws that are set up by the body corporate that all lot owners have to abide by in order to be a lot owner in the complex. Typically, almost every set of body corporate bylaws will have something to do with peaceful enjoyment of the lot, which means that you can't create a problem that inhibits another lot owner's peaceful enjoyment of their lot. So I would think crashing weights on the ground would definitely be a contravention of that bylaw. I'm not across the exact bylaws of this specific building, but it's almost universal with every building I've ever seen of their bylaws. You can't impinge on someone else's peaceful enjoyment of their lot. So if that being the case, you'd raise the matter with the body corporate committee, and then they can issue a contravention notice to the lot owner for dropping weights. And those bylaws exist whether you are a commercial entity, a commercial tenant, or if you're a regular tenant or a lot owner, a residential lot owner.
Yeah, that's a great one, having a look at the bylaws and also the minutes. This is so big around due diligence, but unfortunately not everybody, Nick, goes down the rabbit hole and then they discover, we've got a bit of a problem now. First night's sleep wasn't as grand as we were hoping.
Yeah, it can definitely be a problem. I mean, there's a lot of cases where people will buy, apartments and upstairs from nightclubs and stuff. And in Fortitude Valley, for instance, it was pretty common, and then complain that, hey, we can hear the nightclub. A lot of common sense can solve a lot of these problems from the get-go. If you're going to buy an apartment, upstairs from a nightclub or a gym, probably be mindful that you may have noise problems.
Yeah, especially the nightclub, unless you're into your dancing, and perhaps it's a bit of a bonus. All right then, well, we'll wrap it up there. Always a good chat around Strata, which is just a big issue at the moment. Thanks for coming back onto the Real Estate Breakfast. Enjoy your Thursday.
Thanks a lot, Craig. You too.
From first-time home buyers to seasoned investors to breaking property news, discover the stories behind the real estate.
The media seems to talk to each other, and apparently Trump's son Barron advised them where to go and what podcast to go on, including Joe Rogan's. And when Harris didn't go on, that caused a problem. It's sort of the first time we've seen a shift like this that has actually maybe changed a presidential election.
So when you say 100,000, was that unit or houses?
No, they were freestanding houses. Yeah, I actually bought my own freestanding house for 125,000 on 600 square meters.
Oh, people are crying.
For us, I think we are just located in the heart of Chatswood, but I think Chatswood just between lower North Shore and the upper North Shore. I think for us, the greater opportunity is for upper North Shore, they got a bigger land, but Chatswood is more convenient.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.